My name is Leo Evans, and I'm nobody special. If I had to point to one thing in my life that isn't painfully ordinary, it would be my new wife, Catherine Sterling. Kate, the Ice Queen CEO of Sterling Industries, with a net worth that has way too many commas. It all started with a spectacularly bad decision involving too much whiskey. I still can't piece it together. One minute, I was a part-time bartender at the city's most exclusive rooftop club. The next, I was waking up in the penthouse suite next to its most famous patron. The morning sun sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I stared at the face on the pillow next to me. Impossibly perfect, sculpted from porcelain and frost, and my brain simply shut down for a full 3 minutes. She was already awake. There was no screaming, no accusations, not even a flicker of emotion. She just sat up, clutching the silk sheet to her chest, and looked at me with the same cool detachment she probably used to analyze quarterly earnings reports. Name: Leo Evans. Age: 26. Occupation: until last night, bartender. She nodded, as if confirming the specs on a new piece of hardware. Then, from the nightstand, she produced a folder and a pen. I have no idea when she prepared it, but the paper was still warm from the printer. Sign this. Her voice was like glass. My hand trembled as I took it. At the top, in bold letters: Prenuptial Agreement. Party A, Catherine Sterling. Party B, Leo Evans. The terms were brutally simple. Marry her. Play the part of a devoted husband for 1 year. At the end of the year, I'd receive a condo in the city and $10 million. During the contract period, I was not to interfere in her personal life, not to disclose the nature of our relationship, not to... The list went on. My scalp prickled. Why? I finally managed to ask. My family is pressuring me. The board is nervous. I need the stability that a married woman projects. Her explanation was as clipped and efficient as a press release. You're clean. No complicated background. You fit the profile. Clean. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult. I looked at her, and she met my gaze without blinking. Her eyes were deep, unreadable, but they carried an unspoken weight, an absolute certainty that I wouldn't refuse. She was right. For a guy like me, who'd grown up in the foster system and whose bank account was usually a rounding error, $10 million wasn't just a number. It was a different planet. I picked up the pen and signed my name. Good. She took the folder back and swung her legs out of bed. Even the way she walked to the closet radiated a kind of ruthless efficiency, as if our night together had been nothing more than a minor, unscheduled business expense. Dressed in a sharp pantsuit, she tossed a black card onto the bed. Pin is 6/8. Get yourself a decent suit. A car will pick you up at 3 p.m. to go to City Hall. Don't be late. And with that, she was gone. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the silent room with the faint, cold scent of her perfume hanging in the air. I held the heavy metal card in my hand, feeling like I was in a dream. Me, Leo Evans, a guy who'd bounced between foster homes and odd jobs his whole life, was getting married? To Catherine Sterling, the woman on the cover of Forbes? I pinched my thigh. Hard. It hurt. Not a dream. At 3 o'clock sharp, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom purred to a stop in front of my rundown apartment building. The driver, a sharp-looking man in his 50s named Arthur, gave my new suit a polite but thorough once-over, then opened the door for me. Kate was already inside, wearing a simple white dress that made her look softer, less like the corporate shark on magazine covers. The Arctic wall around her, however, was fully intact. We didn't speak a word the entire way to City Hall. The process was unnervingly fast. We were whisked through a private entrance, photos taken, papers signed, and in less than 10 minutes, a clerk handed us 2 crimson folders containing our marriage certificates. Stepping back out into the blinding afternoon sun, I stared at the certificate in my hand. It still didn't feel real. You'll move into my place starting today, Kate said, her voice pulling me from my daze. Arthur will handle the arrangements. Oh, okay, I mumbled. She glanced at me, and for a split second, I thought I saw something complex in her eyes, something other than ice, but it was gone before I could catch it. Remember the terms of the agreement. With that, she got into a different car and was gone. Arthur approached me and handed me a key. Mr. Evans, this is for the Pinnacle Estate. I've already dispatched a team to collect your belongings. Shall we go? I was still getting used to the formal address. Just Leo is fine. Of course, Mr. Evans, he said, his face a perfect mask of professional deference. I sighed. Fine. In the back of the rolls, I couldn't resist pulling out my phone and Googling the Pinnacle estate. The first result read, Ethelberg's premier residence. Security system rivals the White House. My palms started to sweat again. What I didn't know was that at that very moment, the starting pistol had fired on a new betting pool in Ethelberg's most exclusive circles. The main event? Me? Did you hear? Kate Sterling eloped with some bartender she picked up off the street. You're kidding. Has she lost her mind? What's the angle? I'm opening the book right now. 2-to-1 odds the kid is out on his ass in a month. A man in a custom Tom Ford suit gave a contemptuous laugh, pushing a glass of scotch to the center of the table. A month? You're giving him too much credit. I'll double down on 1 week. He'll either crack from the pressure, or Kate will get bored and throw him out like last season's handbag. The man's name was Chadwick Vanderbilt III, the most persistent and arrogant of Kate's many suitors. His declaration was met with a chorus of knowing laughter. To them, I was a curiosity, a temporary plaything, a joke just waiting for a punchline. They were all waiting to see me crash and burn. The Pinnacle estate was even more ridiculous than I'd imagined. A modern glass and steel mansion carved into a cliffside, overlooking the entire city. It had a massive garden and an infinity pool that seemed to spill into the sky. Inside, it was cold, minimalist, and packed with smart home tech. It felt less like a home and more like a high-tech showroom. Your room is the first on the left, upstairs, Mr. Evans, Arthur explained, leading me through the cavernous foyer. Ms. Sterling's is on the right. The study is between them. Shall I have the chef prepare dinner? No, that's okay. Thanks, I said, waving a hand. I can take care of it. Arthur paused, a flicker of surprise in his professional gaze. He studied me for a moment before nodding. Very well. The kitchen is fully stocked. The refrigerator is automated and will reorder supplies as needed. If you require anything at all, please do not hesitate to call. After he left, I stood alone in the living room, a space so large and empty I could hear my own breathing echo. A wave of loneliness washed over me. Kate and I were living under the same roof, but we might as well have been on different continents. I wandered into the kitchen and opened the automated, state-of-the-art refrigerator. It was packed with gourmet ingredients, Wagyu beef, bluefin tuna, truffles, but most of it was past its prime. The vegetables were wilted, the fruit bruised. The gleaming stovetop was spotless, clearly untouched for ages. I sighed. The Ice Queen, it seemed, lived on air and ambition. I rummaged through the sad-looking produce and found a few salvageable tomatoes, some onions, and a carton of eggs. In the pantry, I found a box of pasta. Good enough. Soon, the simple, savory aroma of a perfectly cooked tomato basil omelet filled the cold, sterile kitchen, chasing away some of the chill. Just as I was about to eat, Kate came home. She looked exhausted, slipping off her heels with a weary sigh. She stopped short when she saw me with the plate. You cooked. Yeah, a lot of the stuff in the fridge was about to go bad, so I just made something simple. I felt a little awkward, unsure if I'd overstepped by using her kitchen. She didn't say anything, her eyes fixed on my plate. In those cool, clear eyes, I saw something shift. Is there any more? She asked. Huh. It took me a second to process. The omelet. Oh, yeah, I can make another one. I quickly whipped up another, placing it in front of her. She picked up a fork and began to eat in silence. She ate slowly, deliberately, but it was clear she was genuinely hungry. She finished every last bite. Thank you, she said softly, setting the fork down. No problem. An awkward silence fell between us. I had no idea what to say, so I just focused on my own food. From now on, you'll be in charge of dinner, she said suddenly. I looked up, meeting her gaze. That's not in the contract, I said. She actually looked taken aback. It was the first time I'd seen an expression on her face other than board meeting, and it looked a lot like surprise. I can increase your compensation, she said, quickly recovering her composure, her tone shifting back to negotiation mode. I laughed. No need to pay me more, I said. I have to eat anyway, but I have one condition. Name it. Stop ordering all this ridiculously expensive stuff that just goes to waste. I gestured toward the fridge. Just get normal, fresh ingredients. If there's something specific you want, you can let me know. She stared at me for a long time. So long I thought she was about to get angry, or just call Arthur to have me thrown out. Finally, she just nodded. Deal. That night, we had our first conversation that wasn't about the contract. It was brief, but the little bit of warmth in the kitchen seemed to make the cold house feel a tiny bit more human. Unbeknownst to me, all of this was captured by a discreet security camera and streamed directly to Arthur's phone. He watched the footage of his boss silently eating an omelet and fell into deep thought. He'd been with Ms. Sterling for 5 years and had never seen her eat simple, home-cooked food, let alone discuss groceries. This Leo Evans was more than he seemed. Arthur quietly opened the Notes app on his phone and made an entry. Subject: Leo Evans. Status: unknown. Suspected master of psychological arts. Day 1. Has successfully breached the primary defense layer using his simple omelet. Methods appear mundane, but are highly effective. Requires close observation. The next day, I officially began my life as a house husband. Kate left for the office at dawn, leaving me alone in the vast, silent estate. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, then turned my attention to the complicated smart home system. Kate had mentioned it was a new product from her company's tech division, and still a little buggy. I tinkered with it for a few hours and discovered that while it had a million flashy features, the basic wiring logic was a disaster. As someone who'd done his fair share of handyman work to make rent, I spotted half a dozen design flaws immediately. In the afternoon, I took a rideshare to the grocery store and bought fresh vegetables and meat. When I got back, an unwelcome guest was waiting for me. A man in a flashy Armani suit, his hair slicked back with a concerning amount of gel, was leaning against a screaming red Ferrari parked in the driveway. He watched me get out of the car with 2 large grocery bags, his eyes dripping with disdain. "You must be Leo," he said, looking me up and down like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. I recognized him from the business gossip sites. Chadwick Vanderbilt, 3. Ethelberg's most notorious trust fund baby and Kate's most obsessive admirer. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I'm here to see Kate," he said, jutting his chin out. "You should do yourself a favor and get a clue. Stay away from her. You're not in her league." I ignored him and headed for the door. "Hey, I'm talking to you." He blocked my path. "I've seen your type before. You're just in it for the money, right? Name your price. How much to disappear?" I looked at his smug, punchable face and almost laughed. "How much do you think Kate is worth?" I asked him. He blinked, thrown off. She's priceless," he stammered. "Oh," I said, nodding. "Then I guess you can't afford her." Chadwick's face turned a shade of crimson I'd never seen before. It was probably the first time in his life that the let me throw money at the problem approach had failed. "You, don't get smart with me," he snarled. "I'm warning you. The Sterling's world is no place for a parasite like you. Just wait. You'll be kicked to the curb before you know it." I didn't have the energy to argue. I sidestepped him and pressed my thumb to the scanner by the door. The massive door swung open and then closed behind me, shutting out his furious sputtering. From his car parked down the street, Arthur watched the entire exchange. He opened his Notes app again. Subject: engaged primary antagonist. C. Vanderbilt, 3. Encounter was brief. Subject displayed remarkable composure under provocation. Neutralized both financial and psychological threats with a single, elegant Socratic maneuver, causing catastrophic system failure in the opponent. This man is dangerous. That evening, Kate came home looking stressed. "Chadwick was here today?" she asked. "Yep," I said from the kitchen, where I was making a chicken soup. "He didn't do anything, did he?" I was surprised by the note of concern in her voice. "Nah, just recited the standard issue billionaire bad boy dialogue." Kate was quiet for a moment. At the dinner table, she had 2 bowls of the soup. "If he comes here again, you don't have to engage with him," she said. "Wasn't planning on it. And if he gets physical, you have my permission to hit him back," she added. "I'll cover the damages." I stopped eating and looked at her. Under the warm kitchen lights, the sharp lines of her face seemed a little softer. Was that a flicker of warmth in her icy eyes? "Got it, boss," I said with a half smile. She frowned slightly at the nickname, but didn't say anything. After dinner, for the first time, she didn't go straight upstairs to her study. She sat on the couch in the living room while some terrible reality show played on the massive television. We sat in a comfortable silence. Suddenly, with a loud pop, every light in the house went out, plunging us into absolute darkness. "What was that?" Kate's voice came out of the blackness, tinged with an unmistakable note of panic. It was the first real emotion I'd ever heard from her. "Don't worry," I said instinctively. "Probably just tripped a breaker. I'll go check." I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. In the sudden beam of light, I saw her sitting rigidly on the couch, clutching a throw pillow like a life raft. So, the Ice Queen was afraid of the dark. "The main panel should be in the basement," I said, heading for the door. "I'll come with you," she said quickly, following close behind. The basement was cold and dark. My phone's light cut through the gloom, finally landing on the main electrical panel. I opened it and stared. The wiring inside was a chaotic rat's nest of crisscrossing cables. It was an electrician's nightmare. Who installed this?" I muttered. "The geniuses in my company's R&D department." Kate's voice came from behind me, laced with a hint of embarrassment. "Right? Of course." A quick inspection revealed the problem. One of the circuit breakers had overloaded and fried. The shoddy wiring job had caused a cascading failure, knocking out power to the entire estate. "Can you fix it?" she asked. "It's an easy fix. I found a spare breaker and some electrical tape in a nearby toolbox. But seriously, you should get a professional to come in and rewire this whole mess. This is a fire hazard waiting to happen." Working by the dim light of my phone, I expertly cut, spliced, and taped the wires. Kate stood behind me, watching in silence. She had probably never seen anyone handle a problem like this before. In her world, you just made a phone call and a team of uniformed professionals showed up. A few minutes later, I flipped the new breaker into place. With a solid thump, the entire mansion lit up. "There," I said, dusting off my hands. I turned around and met her gaze. Her eyes were wide with astonishment and something else I couldn't quite read. How do you know how to do all this?" she asked. I shrugged. When you grow up with nothing, you learn to do a little bit of everything to survive. She fell silent, but the look in her eyes only intensified. From his car, parked in the shadows outside the estate, Arthur watched the lights come back on. He'd been monitoring the security feed via a backup power source. He had witnessed the whole thing. He watched Leo Evans, in near total darkness, with only the light of a cell phone, effortlessly repair a system that had stumped the company's own chief engineers. Arthur took a sharp breath and shakily pulled out his phone. Confirmed. Subject is not only a master of psychological warfare, but also a covert engineering prodigy. Faced with a complex, multi-million-dollar system, he diagnosed and resolved the core failure by sight alone. His skills are esoteric and profound. The subject is more dangerous than previously estimated. After the blackout incident, something shifted between us. She started treating me less like a contractual obligation and more like a person. She'd ask for my opinion on small domestic things, like when her six-figure imported tulip plant was dying. I took one look at it and said, "You're overwatering it. The roots are rotten. It's a goner." She was skeptical, but 2 days later, the plant was officially dead. Or when her ridiculously expensive Italian espresso machine broke down. The service company said it would be a week before they could send a technician. I took it apart and found a tiny, cracked rubber gasket. I replaced it with a 50-cent part from my toolbox, and the machine worked perfectly. She watched me fix her 5-figure coffee machine with a piece of rubber that cost less than $1, the astonishment in her eyes barely concealed. "Leo, what did you really do before all this?" she finally asked one night. "I told you, odd jobs," I said, tossing noodles for the Casio, e pepe she'd become obsessed with. Anything that paid. Food delivery, flea markets, construction, appliance repair. It was the truth. I'd done just about every gig imaginable to save up for my foster sister's college tuition. But to Kate, it must have sounded like a cover story. She didn't press further, just quietly ate her pasta. Our relationship slowly thawed in the crucible of these small, everyday moments. We still slept in separate rooms, and our days were our own, but we were no longer just two strangers living in the same house. Meanwhile, the 1-month deadline on Chadwick's bet was fast approaching. He was clearly getting impatient. He hadn't come back to the estate, but the rumors in their social circle were getting louder. I was a scheming gold digger who had somehow bewitched Kate Sterling. Arthur kept me updated with his own dramatic flair. "Mr. Evans, Mr. Vanderbilt is now referring to you publicly as the Svengali of the gig economy. Mr. Evans, the odds of you lasting the month have shifted to 5 to 1. I just laughed. I didn't care what they thought. My plan was simple. Finish the year, take the money, and disappear to some quiet town to open a small diner. Live a small life. Then, one day, Kate announced that I had to accompany her to a charity gala that weekend. It was in the contract. What do I need to do? I asked. Nothing, she said. Just stand next to me, smile, and don't talk to anyone. Got it. Human decoration. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of a 5-star hotel. Dressed in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car, I stood beside Kate and felt like a fraud. Everyone around us was beautiful, rich, and elegant. Their eyes slid over me with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled contempt. I could hear the whispers. Is that him? Kate Sterling's bartender husband? He looks so normal. Normal is generous. Look at him, he's completely out of his depth. I can't believe she picked him over someone like Chadwick. Kate must have sensed it too. She moved a little closer, her voice low. Ignore them. I gave her a small smile to show I was fine. After some of the jobs I'd worked, a room full of snobs was hardly intimidating. Just then, Chadwick Vanderbilt III glided toward us, a glass of champagne in hand. He was decked out in a white tuxedo, clearly preening. Kate, darling, you look radiant tonight. His eyes scanned right past me, landing on her with a possessive gleam. Thank you, Chadwick, she replied, her tone flat. He, of course, was undeterred. His gaze finally shifted to me, a smirk playing on his lips. And you must be Mr. Evans. I've heard so much about you. He said it with an irony, so thick you could cut it with a knife. I hear you're a man of many talents. Tell me, do you know anything about wine? Here it comes, I thought. The public humiliation. Before I could answer, Kate's eyes narrowed. Chadwick, he's my husband, not a contestant in your little sommelier game. Oh, don't be like that, Kate, he said with a dismissive wave. I'm just curious. A man who captures your heart must be extraordinary. And since the theme of tonight's auction is fine wine, I thought Mr. Evans might like to share his expertise. He snapped his fingers. A waiter appeared with a tray holding 3 glasses of red wine. Mr. Evans, Chadwick said, his voice booming for the benefit of the crowd that was now gathering. We have here an 82 Lafite Rothschild, a 90 Romanée-Conti, and a bottle from my own family's vineyard. Why don't you have a taste and tell us which is which? It was a perfect trap. Everyone knew it. If I admitted I knew nothing, I'd humiliate Kate. If I faked it, I'd make an even bigger fool of myself. Kate's expression turned to stone. She was about to intervene, but I gave her a look, a tiny signal to trust me, and picked up the first glass. I didn't swirl it. I didn't sniff it. I didn't hold it up to the light. I just took a healthy gulp. Then, in the stunned silence of the ballroom, I smacked my lips and said one word, sour. The silence deepened. Chadwick's triumphant smirk froze on his face. He'd expected me to babble about tannins or oak. He hadn't expected that. What? What did you say? He sputtered. I said it's sour and kind of bitter. I don't like it. I took another sip to confirm. A choked laugh erupted from somewhere in the crowd. Chadwick's face turned a deep, alarming shade of purple. Don't you know anything? That's an 82 Lafite. It's one of the greatest wines in the world. And you say you don't like it. Is it? I feigned innocence. Guess it's just not for me. The cheap stuff from the corner store tastes better. A collective gasp went through the room. Comparing Lafite to corner store wine was practically blasphemy. Kate was staring at me, a strange expression on her face. Was she trying not to smile? You're insulting me. Chadwick was practically vibrating with rage. No, I'm not, I said, shrugging. You asked for my opinion. My opinion is it's bad. I put down the first glass and picked up the second, the Romanée-Conti. I took a small, delicate sip this time. Then I wrinkled my nose. This one smells like a damp basement. If the first comment was a grenade, that one was a nuke. The king of wines, dismissed as smelling like mildew. Chadwick was speechless. He just pointed at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Impossible. An older gentleman in the crowd finally protested. Romanée-Conti has one of the most complex bouquets in the world. You're talking nonsense. I'm not, I said, holding the glass out to him. Smell it yourself. Hesitantly, the man took the glass and raised it to his nose. His expression changed instantly. This aroma, He looked up at Chadwick, his eyes wide. Chadwick, my boy, is there something wrong with this bottle? This is cork taint. Cork taint. The words echoed through the room. Every wine aficionado present knew what that meant. A fatal, embarrassing flaw that turned a $50,000 bottle of wine into worthless, moldy-smelling grape juice. Chadwick's face went from purple to ghost white. In his attempt to show off, he'd served a ruined bottle. And worse, the flaw had been pointed out by me, the guy he was trying to humiliate. The crowd's mocking gaze shifted from me to him. I ignored the drama and picked up the third glass, the one for his family's vineyard. I took a sip and my eyes lit up. Hey, this one's pretty good, I said with a nod. It's sweet. Tastes like really good grape juice. I like it. Chadwick looked like he was about to have a stroke. For an aspiring vintner trying to build a luxury brand, having your wine compared to grape juice was a fate worse than death. Seeing his crestfallen face, I actually felt a pang of pity. I clapped him on the shoulder. Listen, man, here's some free advice, I said earnestly. Stop trying to sell that other stuff. It's expensive and it tastes terrible. Sell this one. You make a killing. I even have a name for it. Chadwick's Fancy Grape Juice. Has a nice ring to it. A strangled groan escaped Chadwick's lips. He swayed, his eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed backward into the crowd. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Amid the pandemonium, I felt a cool hand grab mine. It was Kate. She pulled me through the throng of panicked socialites and out onto a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The cool night air was a welcome relief. You, she started, then stopped, a smile she couldn't suppress finally breaking free. What? I asked. You did that on purpose, she said, her eyes dancing. I honestly didn't, I said, and it was the truth. I really thought those first two were awful. Growing up, the best thing I'd ever had to drink was my foster dad's homemade hard cider. I had no palate for sour, bitter, fancy wines. As for the cork taint, I'd overheard a manager at the bar mention it once, describing the smell as a damp basement. The phrase just stuck. I was just being honest. I had no idea Chadwick was so fragile. Kate looked at me, and then she laughed. A real, honest-to-God laugh. It was like watching a glacier melt in seconds, revealing a field of wildflowers. The entire city skyline seemed to brighten. I just stared, completely captivated. Leo, she said, her voice soft. Yeah. Thank you. It was the second time she'd said that to me. The first was for an omelet. This time it was for a farce. I didn't know what she was thanking me for. For getting her out of a jam? Or for making her laugh like that? All I knew was that in that moment, watching her smile, something inside my chest gave a hard, unfamiliar thump. The wine incident made me famous. Or rather, infamous. In the elite circles of Ethelberg, I earned a new nickname, the Grape Juice King. I was seen as a clown, an uncultured brute who'd won by sheer dumb luck. But, funny enough, no one ever tried to talk to me about wine again. Chadwick went aground. Rumor was the humiliation had actually sent him to a wellness retreat. His family's vineyard became a running joke. The 1-month bet on my departure came and went. The odds had become astronomical, but no one was taking them. It was obvious to everyone that Kate had no intention of kicking me out. In fact, she seemed to be doing the opposite. Our life together fell into a comfortable rhythm. She started talking to me about her work over dinner. I didn't understand half the jargon, but I listened. When she worked late, I'd leave a light on for her and a bowl of soup warming on the stove. She was less of a CEO, and I was less of a contractual husband. We were starting to feel married. One Saturday, Kate was home from work for once. I was in the garden, replacing the dead tulips with a few pots of succulents I'd picked up, cheap and hard to kill. She came out, dressed in jeans and a sweater. What are you doing? Watering the plants. You're not supposed to water succulents every day, she said, looking down at her phone. She was reading from some gardening website. They prefer arid conditions. Overwatering can lead to root rot. I looked up at her, so serious and studious, and couldn't help but smile. Got it, Professor Sterling. She shot me a look, but the corners of her mouth twitched upwards. She sat on the bench nearby, content to just be there. The sun was warm, the breeze was light. For a while, we just existed in that peaceful quiet. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. A timid voice answered. Is this Leo? I froze. That voice. Maya. Leo. It's really you. The voice on the other end burst with excitement. I got into Ethelberg University. I'm here on campus. Maya, my foster sister, the closest thing to real family I'd ever had. The reason I worked 3 jobs for the last 5 years. I jumped to my feet. You're kidding. That's amazing. Where are you? I'll come get you right now. I'm at the main gate, but her voice dropped. My wallet and my phone. They were stolen on the bus. My heart seized. Are you okay? Don't move. I'm on my way. I hung up, my mind racing. What's wrong? Kate asked. My sister. She's in town for college. She just got robbed. I have to go. Kate stood up immediately. I'll drive you. No, it's fine. I'll get a car. It's a weekend. It'll take forever. My way is faster. She was already heading inside for her keys, her tone leaving no room for argument. On the way, I gave her the short version of my history with Maya. She listened quietly, her eyes on the road. We found Maya at the university entrance, looking small and lost next to a giant suitcase. Maya, I yelled. Her head snapped up. Her eyes welled with tears as she ran and threw her arms around me. Leo, I was so scared. It's okay. I'm here now, I said, holding her tight. Kate stood by the car, watching us with a soft expression. Once Maya had calmed down, I made the introduction. Maya, this is my boss, Kate. I hesitated, but boss felt safest. It's nice to meet you, ma'am, Maya said, looking intimidated. It's nice to meet you too, Kate said with a small smile. Let's get you out of this crowd. We got Maya settled in her dorm, then took her out for a proper meal, bought her a new phone, and stocked her up on supplies. Kate was patient and kind through it all, and even insisted on loading up Maya's new student ID with $5,000. You can't do that, I protested, trying to pay her back. It's a welcome gift, she said, her gaze firm. Don't argue, or I'll think you don't consider me a friend. Friend. The word hung in the air between us. After dropping Maya off, the car ride back to the estate was quiet. Thank you for today, I said, and I meant it. She's a sweet kid, Kate replied. She reminds me of you. I laughed. I was never that sweet. You have a habit of underestimating yourself, she said cryptically. When we pulled into the driveway, my good mood evaporated. Chadwick Vanderbilt was standing there, looking haggard but just as hostile as ever. And he wasn't alone. Beside him stood an older, imposing man in a severe suit. When Kate saw the man, she stiffened. Dad, she said, her voice tight. Catherine's father, the legendary Harrison Sterling. He looked at me, his eyes like lasers, and I felt like I was being scanned for flaws. He was not pleased with what he saw. This is the man you chose, he boomed, his voice dripping with disapproval. Yes, Kate said, stepping slightly in front of me. This is madness, he snapped. You've made a mockery of this family. End this farce immediately and make arrangements to marry Chadwick. So that was it. Chadwick had run home to Daddy. My marriage is my own business, Kate said, her voice like steel. Your business? Your business is to find a worthless, a gigolo to leech off this family, he roared, pointing at me. Chadwick seized his moment. Mr. Sterling, please don't upset yourself. It's like I told you. He's just after the money. Today he even brought some girl from the sticks with a sob story and scammed Kate out of thousands. He was talking about Maya. My jaw tightened. That's my sister, I said, my voice low. Your sister? Chadwick sneered. How convenient. For all we know, she's just another part of the con. Chadwick. Kate's voice was arctic. Say one more word, and I will personally ensure you never work in this city again. He flinched, but with Harrison Sterling beside him, he puffed his chest back out. Catherine, that is no way to speak to Chadwick, her father scolded. He has a point. We know nothing about this man or the people he associates with. Did you think marriage was a game? I don't need you to run a background check on my husband, Kate shot back. The father and daughter stood deadlocked, the air crackling with tension. I looked at Kate, standing there like a shield in front of me, and felt a warmth spread through my chest. I couldn't let her fight this alone. I stepped forward to stand beside her. Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice even in calm. I know you don't approve of me, but what makes you so sure your judgment is correct? What makes you think Chadwick is a better man for your daughter than I am? Because his family has standing. Because a union with him benefits our company. What can you offer her? A well-cooked meal? A repaired fuse box? His words were pure contempt. I can offer her a home, I said, each word deliberate. The world went silent. Harrison Sterling stared. Chadwick stared. Even Kate turned to look at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. A home, her father scoffed. What do you know about a home? A home requires a foundation of wealth and power, not empty platitudes. Kate doesn't need more wealth, I said, looking him straight in the eye. She has plenty. What she needs is a place where she can come back to after a battle and feel safe. A place where she can let down her guard and just be herself. A place where someone is waiting to have dinner with her, where someone will be there when the lights go out. Chadwick can't give her that, but I can. My words hung in the tense air. Mr. Sterling's expression shifted from scorn to something closer to grudging respect. Chadwick panicked. Mr. Sterling, don't listen to him. He's a con artist. Time will tell if I'm a con artist or not, I said, then turned to Kate. But when it comes to being your husband, I am 100% serious. Kate's eyes shimmered. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she reached out and laced her fingers through mine. Her hand was cold, but mine was warm. Her father looked at our joined hands, his face a storm of conflicting emotions. Finally, he let out a harsh breath. Fine, he growled, pointing a finger at me. I'll give you 1 year. 1 year to prove you can make her happy. 1 year to build something of your own that I can respect. If you fail, you will walk away and never look back. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed off. Chadwick gave us one last hateful look and scurried after him. We were alone in the driveway. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for you to get dragged into this. Don't be, I said, squeezing her hand. We're a team, right? She looked up at me, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Leo, she whispered, what you said back there. Did you mean it? Which part? That you wanted to give me a home. Of course I did, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Though, making your dad approve of me in a year is a pretty tall order. Think I can get an advance on my salary to enroll in some How to Be a Titan of Industry Night classes. A teary laugh escaped her. It was the first time I had ever seen her cry. Not from sadness or frustration, but from something else entirely. I clumsily reached up to wipe her tear away. Hey, don't cry. You'll ruin your makeup. She didn't laugh this time. Instead, she closed the distance between us and wrapped her arms around my neck, holding on tight. Leo, don't leave, she whispered into my ear, her voice pleading. I'm not going anywhere, I said, my arms circling her waist, holding her just as tightly. I'm right here. In that moment, my simple plan of opening a small diner in some forgotten town didn't just feel distant. It evaporated completely. I wanted to stay, right here with her, and build her a home. Her father's 1 year ultimatum hung over my head like a guillotine. I started to seriously consider my options. I could cook and I could fix things, but that wasn't going to impress Harrison Sterling. I had no degree and no corporate experience. Going to work at Sterling Industries would be a disaster. The pressure was immense. Kate must have seen the anxiety on my face. Don't worry about what my father said, she told me one night. Just be yourself. But I don't want to be a problem for you, I said. She thought for a moment. I have an idea, she said. We're launching a new division, a kind of high-concept lifestyle hub. I want you to run it. And what? We're calling it Aura, she explained. It's an experimental venture focused on providing bespoke experiences for our top clients. Private dinners, home design consultations, curated family events. We haven't been able to find the right person to lead it. I think you'd be perfect. I was stunned. Me, a former bartender, running a corporate division? I can't, I said immediately. I don't know the first thing about business. You know about life, she said simply. That's what matters. I'll give you a team to handle the financials and the operations. You just provide the vision. The unwavering trust in her eyes made it impossible to say no. Okay, I said, I'll try. And just like that, I became the creative director of Aura by Sterling. When the news broke, the gossip circles exploded. Is Kate insane? She put the Grape Juice King in charge of a multi-million-dollar project. I heard Aura is their biggest new investment this year. She's handing to her boy toy. This is going to be a train wreck. I give it 3 months before it goes under. Chadwick was ecstatic, telling anyone who would listen that he couldn't wait to watch me bankrupt the company. I ignored them all. Talk was cheap. Results were everything. I threw myself into the project. Kate gave me complete autonomy. I designed the space myself, not as a corporate venue, but as a home. It had a huge open kitchen, a cozy living room, a garden terrace, and a playroom filled with books and toys. I hired a retired carpenter, a woman who'd been laid off from a bakery, and a bunch of creative college students. For our launch event, I didn't plan a wine tasting or a luxury goods showcase. I planned a family makerspace day. We invited our top clients to bring their children and spend a Saturday learning to bake bread or build a wooden toy car. My team was horrified. Director, our target demographic is billionaires. They're not going to be interested in arts and crafts, my marketing manager argued. The profit margins on this are non-existent, the finance guy added. The board will never approve. You're all thinking about what our clients have, I told them. I'm thinking about what they lack. They lack nothing, someone muttered. They lack time, I said. Time with their families. We're not selling bread or toy cars. We're selling connection. We're selling the moments they've been too busy to have. The room was silent. Supported by Kate, the plan went forward. The day of the event was a staggering success. The city's most ruthless CEOs and investors stood in our kitchen, covered in flour, laughing as their children showed them how to knead dough. They sat on the floor in our workshop, patiently sanding pieces of wood alongside a retired carpenter. They were creating something more valuable than a stock portfolio, a memory. At the end of the day, a real estate mogul known for his brutal business tactics shook my hand, his eyes wet. Mr. Evans, thank you, he said. I haven't spent a full day with my daughter like this in 10 years. I knew then that we had created something special. Aura became the hottest ticket in town. The project was a massive financial success, silencing all my critics on the board. Even Harrison Sterling looked at me with a new, grudging respect. I was closing the distance on his one-year challenge. But the real prize was Kate. The look in her eyes when she looked at me now was something I'd never seen before. It was pride. It was admiration. Our relationship had evolved far beyond the contract. We held hands on our evening walks. We curled up on a couch to watch old movies. We shared a soft goodnight kiss before heading to our separate rooms. I wanted more, but I was afraid to push, afraid to break the delicate spell we were under. Aura's success had turned me into an unlikely star in the business world. No one called me the Grape Juice King anymore. They called me Mr. Evans. My life with Kate felt more real every day. The one-year contract was a distant memory. I started thinking about a real proposal on one knee with a real ring. Then crisis struck. A foundational project at Sterling Industries, a partnership with a European tech firm to develop a revolutionary AI chip, imploded overnight. The partner company pulled out, citing the abrupt resignation of their chief technical officer. For Sterling, it was a potential catastrophe. They had sunk billions into the project. If it failed, the company's stock would plummet. Kate immediately flew to Europe to try and salvage the deal, but it was no use. The company wouldn't budge. For the next week, a dark cloud hung over the estate. Kate worked around the clock, growing thinner and more exhausted by the day. I felt helpless. This was her world, not mine. All I could do was make sure she ate and be there for her when she finally came home. One night, she didn't come out of her study at all. I brought her a bowl of soup. She was staring at a screen full of incomprehensible data, her face pale. You need to eat, I said gently. She didn't move. Leo, am I a failure? She asked, her voice trembling. My heart broke. I had never seen her this vulnerable. Don't be ridiculous, I said, coming up behind her and gently massaging her temples. You're the most capable person I've ever met. But I screwed this up, she whispered, leaning back against me. I've let everyone down. No, you haven't, I said softly. Business is business. You can always build something new, but you can't if you work yourself into the ground. There has to be another way. There isn't, she said with a bitter laugh. The entire project depended on their CTO, a German genius named Klaus Richter. He quit, and he's fallen off the face of the earth. Without him, the tech is useless. Klaus. The name sounded familiar. Klaus Richter. I asked, what's he like? An eccentric old German guy, a world-class engineer. Apparently, he's obsessed with antique radios. The world suddenly tilted on its axis. Does he happen to be from the Black Forest region? I asked slowly. Kate sat bolt upright, turning to stare at me. How in the world could you possibly know that? I swallowed. How could I explain that? Years ago, I had made friends with an old German guy on a vintage electronics forum after I helped him troubleshoot a rare World War II-era radio. We'd bonded over schematics and vacuum tubes. He told me he was a CTO at a big company, but hated the corporate bureaucracy. His dream was to retire and open a workshop to restore old technology. His username had been Klaus1958. I might know a guy, I said lamely, on a forum. He likes radios. Can you contact him? Kate's eyes were wide with a desperate, rekindled hope. I can try. I went to my room and dusted off my old laptop. I logged into the forum and sent a private message to Klaus1958. Hey, old friend. Long time no see. 5 minutes later, a reply popped up. Leo, my friend, where have you been? I've been dreaming of your goulash. I smiled. The man was a born foodie. We exchanged pleasantries, and then I got to the point. Heard you left your job. Huh. The news travels fast. Yes, I am free from the corporate fools. They wanted me to cut corners on safety protocols to meet a deadline, an insult to the very spirit of engineering. So that was it. Not a corporate dispute, but a clash of ideals. What's next for you? I typed. I'm going home to the Black Forest. I will build my workshop, listen to my radios, and be left in peace. An idea sparked in my mind. A crazy, audacious idea. Klaus, I have a proposal. Come to Ethelberg. I will give you a workshop better than any you could build. The most advanced equipment, a budget with no limits, and most importantly, complete and total autonomy. No corporate suits, no deadlines. Just you and your work. Is this a trick? Are you trying to lure me to America to be your personal chef? The goulash is part of the deal. I typed back, smiling. I sent him the link to the Aura website. This is where I work now. Think of it as a laboratory for ideas. I explained the whole concept of Aura to him. A place not just for hobbies, but for passions. A place where a homemaker could learn to be a master chef and a scientist could build a rocket all under one roof. He was quiet for a long time. Leo, you are serious. Dead serious. Let me think on this. He signed off. I went back to the living room. Kate was pacing anxiously. He said he'll think about it. I told her. The hope in her eyes dimmed. Well, she said with a weak smile. We tried. Trust me, I said, taking her hand. The next day, Kate received a phone call that would become a legend in the corporate world. It was Klaus Richter. He was accepting her offer. But he wasn't joining the Sterling Industries AI division. He was joining Aura as a subordinate of Director Leo Evans. His only conditions were a lab with total creative control and a weekly supply of Leo's goulash. Kate hung up the phone and stared at me as if I had just grown a second head. Who are you? She whispered. I just grinned. I'm your husband. The news that a Nobel-level engineer had abandoned the tech industry to join a lifestyle hub sent shockwaves through the market. Sterling stock didn't just recover, it skyrocketed. An avalanche of talent started applying to work at Aura. Harrison Sterling called me himself. There was a long pause on the line before he finally spoke. You're full of surprises, son. I knew, in that moment, that I had won his challenge. Chadwick Vanderbilt reportedly locked himself in his mansion for a week, unable to comprehend how I had succeeded where he and his billions had failed. It all felt like a dream. And me, the architect of this impossible dream, was standing in the kitchen, perfecting my goulash recipe. Kate came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist and resting her chin on my shoulder. Leo, was this all part of a plan? She asked, her voice laced with awe. From the very beginning. The omelet, the wine, Aura, Klaus. Did you plan all of it? I turned off the stove and turned to face her. If I said yes, would you be scared of me? She shook her head, her eyes shining. No, she said. I'd think I was the luckiest woman in the world. I smiled and leaned down to kiss her. It wasn't a chaste goodnight kiss. It was deep and long and filled with everything we'd left unsaid for months. Kate, I murmured against her lips. Let's tear up that contract. Okay, and maybe you could move into my room. A blush spread across her cheeks. Okay, life with Kate was no longer a contract. It was a partnership. We woke up in the same bed, our legs tangled together. We fell asleep in each other's arms. My life, which had always felt like a series of temporary stops, had finally found a permanent home. Aura flourished. Klaus's future lab started churning out brilliant, practical inventions that simplified and enriched people's lives. I went from being a curiosity to a respected innovator. My face was on magazine covers, usually right next to Kate's. On Maya's birthday, we went to pick her up from her dorm. As we waited outside, Chadwick Vanderbilt approached us. He looked thinner, humbled. "Kate." "Leo," he said, avoiding eye contact. I came to apologize. To you, Leo. I was a snob and a fool. For everything I said, everything I did. I'm sorry." He gave me a stiff, formal bow. Just then, Maya came running out of the building. "Leo." "Kate, you're here." She stopped when she saw Chadwick. Chadwick saw her too, and he just stared, completely dumbstruck. "You're my sister," I said. "Your sister is beautiful," he blurted out. Maya blushed. I looked at Chadwick's goofy, love-struck expression and had to suppress a laugh. "Apology accepted," I said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Just try to be a better person from now on." I took Kate and Maya's hands and led them away. I glanced back once. Chadwick was still standing there, staring after Maya like he'd been struck by lightning. I had a feeling our lives were about to get a lot more complicated. I thought I had it all. The career, the woman I loved, a life I never could have imagined. Until the day Arthur handed me a thick manila envelope. "Mr. Evans, Mr. Sterling asked me to give this to you." Arthur's expression was grim. Inside was a detailed report with the title, "A Private Investigation into the True Identity of Leo Evans." My blood ran cold. I flipped it open. The first few pages were my life story as I knew it. Foster care, odd jobs, bartender. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I turned the page. Staring back at me was a faded, black and white photo of a young man holding a baby. The man's eyes, his smile, they were mine. Beneath the photo was a caption. Dr. Julian Evans, celebrated physicist, disappeared, presumed deceased, along with his wife in a laboratory accident 25 years ago. Their infant son, Leo, was never found. The world dissolved into static. My foster father had told me stories about my real father being a great scientist who had vanished, but I'd always assumed they were just stories. The last page was a DNA report, confirming that the man in the photo was my father. I wasn't an orphan. My father was a hero. And I was nothing. I stormed into Harrison Sterling's office, the report shaking in my hand. "Why?" I slammed it on his desk. "You decide. I had to know who my daughter married, Leo." "Well, now you know," I said with a bitter laugh. "The long-lost son of a dead scientist. Your father wasn't just a scientist, Mr. Sterling said, his voice heavy with a guilt I didn't understand. "He was my best friend. He saved my company from bankruptcy years ago. I was there at the lab the day of the accident. I couldn't save him. It's the greatest regret of my life." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange sorrow. "I've been searching for you for 25 years. I stumbled out of his office, my mind reeling. Kate was waiting for me. "Arthur told me everything," she said, taking my hand. "It doesn't matter who you were. It only matters who you are. And you are my husband." I looked at her, and the dam finally broke. I held on to her like a drowning man, a lost child who had finally been found. 1 year later, in Klaus Richter's lab at Aura, the German scientist was fussing over a massive, bizarre-looking machine humming with power. "Leo, come look at my new toy," he shouted excitedly. "I call it the chronal displacer. Theoretically, it is capable of time travel." "Klaus, what have you been building in here?" I asked, eyeing the mess of wires warily. "Science," he declared. "I have already successfully teleported an apple 1 minute into the future. And the point of that is, it is a proof of concept. My real goal is to go back 26 years, to the day of the accident." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "I have the coordinates. I have a date," he beamed. "I'm going to bring your parents back." He slammed a large red button. The machine roared to life, bathing the lab in a blinding white light. When the light faded, the platform in the center of the machine was empty. "Did it fail?" I asked. "No," Klaus yelled, pointing at a gauge. "The energy signature. It worked." Something came through. We both stared at the platform. Slowly, a figure began to shimmer into existence. It was a young man in a white lab coat. He looked around in utter confusion, holding a half-eaten apple in his hand. Where am I?" I was just in the commissary. I looked at his face, my face, but younger, brighter, unburdened by the years. My breath caught in my throat. "Dad,